Templar Lodge Hotel in Gullin. It's really great to see you. But we're going to kick off, first of all, with myself. I'm going to be blathering on about the New World Order. You know, a lot of people have got various ideas about what the New World Order is all about. And I'll present you with mine. I don't guarantee that it's absolutely true, but I mean, who knows the absolute truth on this? But to take reproduction away from the family unit so that future generations get produced at the instigation of insurance offices. Oh, sorry mate, you have to have a permission to have children because your DNA is flawed and you won't get insured, you won't get a job, your kids won't get a job because they are a risk at blah blah blah. So like taking reproduction away from the family and cloning it, genetically engineering it. Now we've all heard, I mean, I don't know if we've heard of Aldous Huxley and Brave New World and George Orwell in 1984, and these are, I'm afraid, are not cliches. These were very, these are the Bibles. Now, just to put you at your complete ease, after World War II, the Nazis that had been conducting their empirical experiments on millions of hapless Jews were then thought that their data was immensely valuable, thought the United States and people like the UK, and they exported them. They were prized assets, them and their torturous research data on the mind control, and that was imported into the United States and formed the very basis of the CIA and subsequent mind control program. Now that's it. So if you can control law and order, control reproduction, and of course, like controlling the mind is another cracker. I mean, basically there are whole systems of research and non-lethal weaponry and subliminal programming set up to control the population. And people have discovered just how easy it is to actually make an automaton out of a human being. It's easy. It isn't difficult. It's easy. The human subconscious is something that can be patterned or repatterned. In fact, quite amazingly, like one of the world's most prominent psychiatrists. Now you remember psychiatrists are the guys that decide whether what dosage of medication you get tonight and stuff like that, and decide how long you're going to be in, you know. And so like the world's most prominent psychiatrist, you know, elevated on a platform, showered with international awards and accolades and stuff like that. He was looked up to as a sort of a god of psychiatry. His name was Dr. Ewan Cameron. Now, Dr. Ewan Cameron was a chap who did a lot of his experimentation in Canada and spent his time repatterning little old ladies with cattle prods and electric shocks, tapes under the pillow and stuff like that. Now that's called shock programming, trauma-based programming, trauma-based mind. And people have discovered that if you traumatize the population in some way, you can cause them to disassociate from it, and they can control all that. Now they've now got drugs that can do it in 10 minutes. But what's worse than that is the insidious stuff that can get piggybacked. Like for instance, all the new wireless application protocol mobile phones, there's a whole global net of GPS satellites and microwave satellites overhead. And some of these I think are responsible for some of the crop circles, because that kind of helps destabilize religion. But there's this whole network of that stuff overhead, and basically they have discovered that they can broadcast on the frequency of human thought. Because I mean, human thought is just a sort of wavelength, and oddly enough, the wavelength of the human mind is the wavelength of these mobile phones, for some reason best known to themselves, you know. So, yeah, it's a happy coincidence. Yes, of course. So, what we have at the moment is the idea of controlling minds. Now I take it we were all there in watching TV on Christmas 1999, weren't we? Well, some of us might have been. Christmas 99 was sponsored by a car company. Now, basically, this wonderful car company, this wonderful Nissan, was it Nissan? It was one of these major car companies was launching a car in Europe. it was launching a wonderful car in Europe. And then the advert that went out in France, Belgium, Holland and Germany were these people driving, this guy driving his wife to the maternity unit in their brand new Swiss safe wonderful car, driving along there, you know, like the buildings flashed by. But basically someone from the Paris Match newspaper slowed that video down and discovered the subliminal message in the 25th frame of each of the processes. And it was about Satan, it was about blood, and it was about all sorts of stuff. And the Paris Match newspaper discovered that it was the advertising company Saatchi & Saatchi of London that had made this, and that there's some investigation underway, but we never heard much more about that. The whole idea of subliminal programming, of course, is a very easy thing. I mean, there are numerous things that the population have to take on board in order to be controlled. They have to be slowed down a wee bit. Because we are, like, one of psychiatry's best, oh, you're talking awful fast there, we'll have to sort that out. So, and then they give you a dose of liquid kosh. Now, the thing is, however, that, you know, gargle with a pint of Largactol and that's you sorted out. But worse than that, however, is the other equivalent. The equivalent is this insidious stuff that they put in the water these days. Now, basically, the whole fluoridation thing, fluoride in the water, is as good for your teeth as tooth-kind Ribena. It is not good for your teeth. It's got enough fluoride and teeth have got absolutely nothing to do with reality. Scientific studies show that. Fluoride in teeth, naught to do with reality. But what they discovered in the concentration camps was that fluoride acted on the hippocampus of the brain and made people, the Jews in the camps, more docile. They made them more docile because it acted on a part of the brain slow down. It's alright, okay, I better do what I'm told then. So, fluoride, Nazi scientists and all that whole stuff was exported to America and the fluoridation program began. They've decided to add this fluoride into everybody's water, telling you it's good for your teeth and all that stuff. Tosh. Fluoride is one of the most reactive substances known to mankind, and in the smallest of doses it can react with things like mercury amalgam or anything else in your bloodstream to create the most unfortunate concoction of stuff. It's just absolutely bad for intelligence, is fluoride. It dumbs the population down. Now, okay, so that's the kind of water side of it. Now, how about food? What is it that they can do? I mean, like, basically, there are so many of us. There are 6 billion people on this planet, and reports from the United Nations that describe us as there's 4 billion of us that are uselessly eating. 4 billion useless eaters, not like 4 billion mums and dads or 4 billion what. They're useless eaters, a wasted, superfluous population, and I'm a terribly arrogant, wonderful chappy, and I really think that all these useless people should all go and have a sorry earth change somewhere and shuffle off their mortal coil, because we really deserve to be on top of everything, and we'll have all the very best, and all these chappies. It's basically, a friend of mine took over the job of information officer of the Theosophical Society in Scotland, and we discovered this report left in the file, which went on about population culls and justice without mercy and 4 billion useless eaters and stuff like that. Now we've got like documentation, written by the United Nations. Things are going to get really rough and all. There's piles of quotes. Unfortunately, if I'd done my homework really meticulously, like a professional guy like Malcolm Robinson, there, I would have been able to give you those quotes right off. But actually, this writing's too small. I can't be bothered because it's not really the point. There are quotes that you can say. These people have all been quoted as saying that 4 billion people have got to go. So how can they help us on our way out? Basically, first of all, I would look at microwave food. Do you know that there's a 1947 study done in Russia that suggests that microwaving food, it destroys the nutrients and creates carcinogenic radicals. Now that study was recently duplicated in the 1990s by a Swiss institute. This Swiss institute produced experimental results that suggested that microwaving food was really bad for the intestines, it broke down, it was bad for the bloodstream, it produced radicals, it produced all sorts of things that were really, really unhealthy. And that institute was basically closed down, the scientist was sacked, and basically it was something to do with like the Institute of Swiss Electrical Appliances applied for a warrant to close them down and discredit the research. So they want to get us via our food, our water, our religion. Now also, they get us via our weather as well, because they actually have the capacity to control weather, not just with seeding clouds, but I mean some people may say that it has been a military objective to take control of the weather, because if you have control of the weather, you have control of the harvests, you have control of the population's moods and beliefs, and you have control of the population's morale. And in fact, some of these weather experimentations were attempted in the Far East. The initial concept of seeding clouds and stuff like that has been around for a long time, but this latest weaponry, this technology, this electromagnetic controls of the ionosphere, that's well underway. I mean, at the moment in the United States is currently in a turmoil, because there are these tanker planes flying overhead, legally flying overhead. There's this whole thing called contrails. These tanker planes are disgorging aerosol sprays of lactobacillus and all sorts of biochemical agents upon the population, and people are turning ill. This whole stuff's called chemtrails, and these chemicals have been big crisscross patterns. You're in your city, you're doing your gardening, you're mowing the lawn, and then overhead there are these tanker planes flying about with crisscross trails. And, oh, that's a nice pattern, that, and all that stuff's coming down, it's settling, and people are turning ill with this stuff. I think it's actually been tried in southern England. I think I've heard of that. So there's this whole thing about chemtrails, the poisoning. I mean, it's quite blatant, let's be honest. It's quite in-your-face stuff when you see it, and they don't really care. I mean, why am I not being dragged away? Well, I'm just a nutter anyway. It doesn't matter about me at all anyway. So, like, the thing is that, so control the weather, control the food, control the religion, control the world court. And by the way, technically, within the next year or so, I could be dragged in front of a panel of judges at the United Nations saying I've been a terribly naughty boy, and that action has got re-educational action, remedial re-education has got to be implemented. I can't wait. So, so anyway, the other thing is like identify another method of controlling the population is, apart from turning them into fluoridated zombies, is to get them implanted. Because if you got them implanted, you know what was... At the moment, there's something called a digital angel at the moment. Somebody's invented this great chip called a digital angel. But prior to all of this more recent invention of the digital angel, these tracking chips have been implanted in dogs and cats in California, and if you've got a missing dog or cat, or terrorist or someone that's been buying the wrong kind of food this week, you can track them down and make sure that they get the food that they're meant to get. So basically, they've been trying these out in cats and dogs. They're tiny little things, a subcutaneous thing. They've been trying out... Everyone's seen Arnie Schwarzenegger movie, Total Recall, where they've got this collar around everybody's neck that if they run out the periphery, it explodes and stuff like that. Well, I mean, the explosive device, so basically they're actually trying stuff out on the prisoners in the UK at the moment. Basically, the jails are full to overflowing, and people are being locked up for every kind of misdemeanor, including giving talks like this. I mean, people are being locked up, and in the States, the jails are overflowing. And what are these jails turning into? They're turning into factories. They're like gulags. You know, you can look forward to your career in jail if you make an accountancy error in the States. 3 strikes and you're out and stuff like that in California. These strikes can be a parking offence, looking sideways at a police officer, or not having the right sticker on the back of your car, you can be in prison for a long time, having a happy new year, a happy new millennium, basically. You can look forward to quite a long time in jail in the United States for anything these days. The prison populations are overflowing. The gulag industry is quite amazing. And the thing is, in Britain here, the jails are overflowing as well. The crime that's being promoted. Actually, I mean, like, on the one hand, you've got like, we're flooded with drugs. Some of the drugs have got anthrax in them, and I mean, like God knows where all that stuff's come from. The drugs that are on sale are actually not really 100% what they're meant to be anyway. For instance, some of the hippie population indulge in hash and all that kind of thing, and that soap bar, or whatever it's called, is meant to be cannabis resin, but is in actual fact henna that's put in shampoo and candle wax, and it's also put in horse tranquilizers. Because the reason why they put in the horse tranquilizers is they've got to be able to induce an altered state in people's heads, otherwise they will not think anything has happened to them. But nobody really has had any. They're not really getting what they think they're getting. So they're actually finding ways to poison and pare down the population. A loony here, you know, like a bit of bad drugs here, a bit of this. It's like pruning, you know, pruning. You know, they don't want to just make it look obvious. If they make it look obvious, then everybody will rumble all at once and stuff like that. So, like, I take it you're going to come and bail me out, when's the one? Aye, we can all sew mailbags together. It'll be great. I look forward to it. So, like also, if they can cut down on. So, I was saying, like, prisoners in the United Kingdom have got ankle bands with things on them, tags. But what they ideally want to do is give the entire population a good shot with this digital angel thing. What they're promoting is it monitors your heart. It's good for your head. It's happy. It's wonderful. It's everything you want. It'll make you happy. It'll do everything for you. It's absolutely wonderful. It'll do your shopping. It'll update your finances. You and your digital angel. But what about digital demon? I mean, what happens if it's actually really a digital demon, and that they can say, well, yeah, that guy's having sex tonight. That isn't on his schedule, right? We'll have to tax that. They may finally have found a new way to tax reproduction. They may finally have found a new way to find out. You know, like this guy's been asked to vote, you know, like Tony Blair again, and he isn't. Look, his heart rate's gone up. He's not voting Tony Blair, right? We'll have to sort him out. Now, I think Tony Blair is a farewell to democracy. Personally, I mean, Tony Blair was educated. By the Bilderberger conference in Athens in 1974, he was groomed for stardom then, as in fact was Clinton at subsequent meetings and things. So there we go. I mean, like ID, travel, dwellings. Now, basically, but all this stuff I'm talking about has actually been heard at this meeting in the 70s at this convention of doctors. The idea of taxing dwellings and rooms. They want, you know, like, it's basically, there's nothing pro-human about it, there's nothing nice about it, there's nothing helpful about it, there's nothing, this is really upsetting you all, I can see, but there's the forewarned is foreworried, that's the way I see it. So, like, there's absolutely nothing happy about this whatsoever. I mean, like they're actually, if you've got too many rooms in your house, they'll tax those as well. I mean, like, if you're having sex, that will get taxed. You know, there could even be, like, you know, electronic chips and stuff like that. They want to zombify the population. They don't want thinkers. Now, how they're dealing with thinking and the intellectual processes is quite interesting. They have adopted this system of education called outcome-based education. Outcomes-based education. Now, what they've done is they've taken people away from the reading and writing and arithmetic, 3 R's, and they're starting to introduce this idea of touching. How is it for you? Okay, so you got the sum 2 and 2 equals 4 wrong, but how was that for you? Well, I really think that was great, Miss. Got 5. It was nearly 4, and I thought I could do better. Now that's great. Well, you'll have a diploma. That's great. You've passed. So this is outcomes-based education. 2 and 2 equals 5. It wasn't 4, but never mind, you might get it right next time. How was that for you? That is outcomes-based education. Now, what you want to go with outcomes-based education is this notion of the fact that this is a kind of psychology that is actually ideally suited to the feminine psychology. Now, that's why, for instance, that females in Scotland are outperforming males at exam results. Because this kind of educational system favours the feminine psychology. Males are used to kind of risks. They'll take risks. They'll sort of like, that's as a risk for this conference, for instance. I mean, it's a big one. Listen, this is all going down in tape. This could be used against me at the United Nations court. Andrew Hennessey does down the United Nations. We'll sort them out, and I could be re-educated. But you know, like this stuff, outcomes-based education is a way of dumbing down the population. There's another way of dumbing down the population, and that's to restrict their access to knowledge and learning. Now, they did say that they were going to rewrite some of the classics and substitute certain words here and there, not so that anybody would really notice overall, but that the whole meaning would be slightly altered, so that people would now blend into this liquidized, pulverised global New World Order concoction of grey sludge that is called the New World Order. Now, speaking out against the New World Order is actually a thought crime. And right enough there are thought police. Every thought crime needs a thought policeman. So basically what they thought about was actually introducing you to a kind of social worker come prison officer, and they would use whole tracts of psychological legislation. Now, the psychological legislation has been written nearly 20 years ago. It's called the Healthy Start Programme. The Healthy Start Programme. First of all, you're a healthy person. Are you a healthy person? Have you been criticising Tony Blair again? Yes, but okay, if you take that amount of medication and come back next week, we won't lock you up. Oh, that's very good. Thanks very much. So there's a healthy person program. And you need there's also a healthy city. It's a healthy person. There's a healthy city program, and basically the healthy city is to encourage the youngsters to shop their parents for dropping litter and stuff like that. So the environment, Tony Blair's given a recent speech on the environment. We're going to crack down this environment thing, and all these polluters, these horrific cars that should be in buses and stuff like that. You get that sorted out. You get these cars off the road and stuff like that. The environment, restricting travel, getting everybody zoned in, like zombified up, ring fenced with electronic measures, and turned into a zombie. And with an implant, and if you buy the wrong book or you access the wrong information, somebody's watching. It's like Big Brother, except there's no prize money at the end of it. So like, basically the whole notion of Big Brother is really coming home to roost. So I was telling you about the Healthy Start program is in the United States. And Tony Blair has introduced this idea of community schools. Now the idea of community schools was actually put down in legislation about 20 years ago. It was the whole idea of re-educating family values. In the States are passing laws in Colorado that makes teaching people Christianity illegal. It's illegal. The old prejudices, the old ways, the old nonsense, the old crap, that's the things that have poisoned the minds of this wonderful new generation. And what we want is the army of tomorrow. We're going to take this new generation away from this horrific quagmire of old values that cause all these wars and catastrophe, when we can have a new world order, the goddess. You know, we can have the sort of goddess thing, and we can have this idea of the young of tomorrow. Okay, they're not particularly bright, because after all, the outcome-based education is going to help, and also the fact that schools are going to become less and less important. You can get all the education you want from your palm-top computer, right? Now look, if you're looking at a palm-top computer, and it's this size, right? Now look, I mean, you're looking at this palm-top computer, and it's that size. Alright, I'll just compare that Da Vinci with the, I mean, can you think of the implications of trying to aesthetically analyse information on something that size? And you're not in school, you have to do your homework, you've got access to a whole global internet of through the garbage. you've then got to try and make sense of your homework. I mean, who wants homework when you can play Doom 2 or Quake 3 or whatever, or Quake 10, virtual reality plugins or whatever. And the other thing was, now this is, you'll get this quite shortly, that this idea of encouraging sports, I've got a document here that says that they planned to make the younger generation wear trainers and running, they planned to promote running shoes. That was in the 70s. And all you see today is a New World Order army with a baseball cap and the trainers with the running shoes and the kind of the Nike kind of Adidas kind of stripes. And it's a whole New World Order army of youth that are in youth culture. You know, we're running about. We don't need cars. We don't even need cyclers and electronic cars. We get on our buses, we're on our bikes, we're on our trains, we're saving the world, we're saving the environment. This is being recorded. This could be held against me later on, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, terrible. Shocking. I've got no conscience whatsoever. So, like, there we go. I mean, basically, like, this, the whole army of baseball caps and trainers, this was actually promoted. This whole notion was actually a concept in some guy in tweed jacket sat, a think tank sat down and decided how they were going to make the future generations really stupid. And they sat down and decided how to stupefy the future generations by bombarding them with sex and like stupid games. Like they're totally absorbed by all the computer games and crap. Are totally taken up by all this garbage, and they don't need no education on their Bandol computers. That's so boring. I mean, who wants to try and work out your homework? Imagine if your homework was to compare the relative aesthetics of a Da Vinci to a Titian, say. How the hell do you get a Da Vinci and a Titian side by side on something like that? How could you possibly make anything relevant out of that? It's dumb, it's crap. And people are going home and they're playing their Game Boys and they're plugging in the virtual reality and having a really good day. They don't need no education. But they are getting thought control. They are getting thought control. And all the dark sarcasm in the cupboard was actually thought out years and years and years ago by those bricks in the wall who called maybe organisations like the Tavistock Institute in London decided how are we going to dumb down future generations? We trigger them, we get them crazy with sex, we flood them with pornography, we increase the licentiousness of the culture. Ooh, it's big. Did I get that word right, by the way? Licentious. Yeah. So we actually give them a license to actually go wild. We chuck drugs at them, we chuck everything at them, chuck everything at them except meaning and the ability to analyse, because that's something that outcomes-based education does not allow, is the capacity to sit down and analyse. Because if they did analyse and analogize, if they did sit down and really work this out, they would see that this compartmentalisation of society happened in the 19th century. And the English Industrial Revolution, they compartmentalised down the whole production process so that nobody knew what was going on. That was before the advent of unions and suffragettes and votes and stuff like that. It was the production assembly line process. Nobody knew the whole story, so that nobody could ever take it over. You only knew how to put a wee bolt in there. You passed it on to somebody, he put a spleen in there. You passed it on to somebody else and he put a joint there. But nobody knew the whole thing. And it's the same that they're doing with knowledge today. I mean, like if you look, have anyone been into Waterston's computer department recently? Have you not noticed that there is a mountain of books. There's a mountain of books. And what are all these books? I mean, first of all, you had HTML, you had VRM, virtual reality modeling language, XML. I mean, like, all you've got is junk, gibberish. There is nothing but gibberish. And every 3 months, one mountain of gibberish goes out of date, replaced by another mountain of gibberish. But there is no meaning. None of it has any meaning, ultimately, that we're not being taught the real meaning of life. And that's all part of this policy, this 4 billion useless wasters that we are. We're useless eaters, say the United Nations, and we've all got to go because, you know, we're consuming resources, we're bad boys, and so long we haven't got any free energy or anti-gravity. No, that's not allowed, even though it's been invented for decades. Free energy, anti-gravity spaceships, all that stuff's we put at our disposal. The story they're giving us is, sorry boys, there's a fuel shortage, and there's a fuel strike, and we can't get enough engines from NASA to take 4 billion people off the planet. Because there's not enough fuel to go around. You have to go around to the garage and stuff like that. It's only emergency service. So this is the story that we're getting. There's no free energy, there's nothing. We're not allowed to go nowhere. And there's just too many of us. By the way, I've got all my important notes in here. Yeah, tools of psychology, thought police, palm top computers, old religions have to go, drugs and alcohol, sport as a tool of social change, future shock. Well, yeah, well, this whole thing about like think tanks and stuff like that. Like Tavistock Institute was founded. You know, World War II was a really wonderful time for the Nazis on this planet. See, World War II was never really won or lost. The reality was that it just upped and continued its business elsewhere. I mean, okay, it was the end of Germany, but you know, World War II never really stopped. I mean, the Nazis just went and opened up shop elsewhere in the CIA and in places like London or Argentina. But one of their think tanks was the Tavistock, still is the Tavistock Institute, which has been blamed for everything from John Lennon's lyrics to the introduction of licentious lifestyles into the United States, say the born-again Christians and you know, all this kind of stuff. So now the thing about Tavistock Institute is that they had this idea that if they bombarded people enough with X-Filey kind of stuff, if they bombarded people with an avalanche of a deluge of nonsense, people would not know what to think, and then they would supply the solution. The solution becomes supplied. Right, okay, so like that's called future shock. There's a technical name for this flood of stuff that comes at us. It's called future shock. So this is the kind of thing that's going on. I hope I haven't shocked you too much. I hope I'm giving you too much of a hard time. I haven't really covered any of the... But as I said earlier, you know, that all the secret society stuff is just mind games for the slightly more intelligent masses, and that the ultimate bottom line is that at the bottom of all of this is a non-human species that runs the human race, thinks that there's too many humans and that they've got to go, and that the actual relevance of it all to us is that there are 4 billion human beings whom there are whole streams of stuff written about how they've all got to go and stuff like that. But there are 4 billion superfluous human beings, and that there's going to be earth changes and stuff like that, and they all want us to also conveniently die off or shuffle off and ascend or whatever it is. Now, the reality of it is, however, is that regardless of all the esoteric secret societies, United Nations and UNESCO's and World Health Organizations and all that other stuff, regardless of all of that, what we have here is actually a non-human species running every side of the human race there is. It's running this Walt Disney theme park. It's really a Walt Disney, and when you look at it all, it doesn't make sense. It's non-human, it's anti-human in fact. It wants to get rid of us all. There's just this Walt Disney theme park, and like the politics are Mickey Mouse. The politics are Mickey Mouse politics. If you really look into the decisions that are made, I mean, some of the political decisions, everybody picks up newspapers and goes, "Oh my God, that's madness." But in reality, it's just like, it's the human race being culled. The human race is being divided, it's being conquered, it's being shuffled about, it's being messed around. And the reason why your newspaper headlines and political stories don't make sense is because they don't make sense. And if it sounds mad, it's because it is. There's absolutely, I suppose there's very little meaning to the political processes that actually comprise this society. It doesn't make sense, and basically the whole thing sounds very alien to me. The fact that there was this report called Report from Iron Mountain, and it decided in its wisdom by this think tank in the 1962, something like this think tank, decided, American government scientists got together and they all decided that it was much better if the human race had a war, War makes up the human race. I mean, like, the whole idea of gladiatorial combat and blood sports and stuff like that. Human race needs a bit of blood and gore, you know, Al Gore or whatever it is. You know, so the human race needs gore and stuff like that. So, like, this is what they've actually, you know, like, it's such an alien thing, you know, this sickening stuff. And there are 4 billion people. If only they would say to themselves, hey, wait a minute, all this stuff is nonsense. The problem is that the average human being is so facilitating, so accommodating. Oh, right, it's madness, but maybe it'll get better tomorrow. Because I mean, he's not that stupid. He looks a fairly interesting kind of chap, you know. Maybe it'll get better. Oh yeah, we keep giving them sick. But what you don't want to do is allow them to get to the point where they end up coming out saying, well, there's 4 billion people got to go, we'll just round you all up, we'll take you to courts, we'll give you a new religion, we'll take away your mum and dad, we'll take away your children, we'll redistribute the wealth, we'll redistribute freedoms, we'll influence your weather, we'll implant you with ID, we'll stop you from travelling. It's horrible, isn't it? It's like really depressing, everyone. I'm really sorry about this, but I don't know what to do. I mean, should I sing a song to sort of close, you know? Like, always look on the bright side of life.